Alright, hello. I'm doing 3 of these today because I love Defunctland. Here we go. The Wiggles ride. I didn't know the Wiggles was a ride. I would have assumed the Wiggles had a ride because they were huge for a time. Um, Here are the things I know about the Wiggles. Uh, I know they did the song Banana Phone because somebody did an AMV setting Banana Phone to like one of the first fights in DBZ with Boo. Like right after Bobbity releases him, and that was amazing. I saw that before I ever knew what Banana Phone was from. Had to have a friend who had a younger brother who liked the Wiggles come over. Was like, oh yeah, I know that's from the Wiggles. And then in a similar vein, even before that, there was this ancient um, golden, like platinum era of YouTube video. Um, I think the guy kind of like Microsoft Paint or something, and just did like line doodles everything of like the first 2 episodes or something of Pokemon, summarized way down to like 6 minutes, and then like all the before we had the term YouTube poop, before we had the term YouTube poop. So that was things like, okay, Pikachu, I'm talking like this, and we're gonna establish that we're walking somewhere. So we're gonna do Can't Touch This. We're gonna draw like doing the Can't Touch This. We're gonna play the song because that you could play the music you wanted back then. And we're gonna have Pikachu's voice slow down, slow like this. And yes, how it starts off is Ash's mom coming in and saying, "Don't forget to eat your breakfast. Have some fruit salad." They sing a little bit of fruit salad, yummy yummy from the Wiggles, and then that same friend mentioned, oh that yeah, it's also from the Wiggles, and everything else I know about from the Wiggles, apart from just seeing it everywhere osmosis, is of course 30 Rock. So I love 30 Rock. When Jaina dates one of the Woggles, which is how I know they're Australian. That's the main thing I learned from that. I'm going to assume that Wiggle Power is not Australian for white power, and they're secretly a Nazi band. I'm assuming that's not the case for the Wiggles. I'm going to give them that benefit of the doubt. I'm also going to assume that the awkward one isn't actually a werewolf with a thing for buildings. I'm going to give them that benefit of the doubt. Um, but now let's learn about their dark ride. I love dark rides. Dark ride is my personal favorite type of ride at an amusement park because I don't like roller coasters. I love the idea of roller coasters. I don't like going on them. So same with wine. I love the idea of wine.
In 1957, a 24-year-old Australian man named John Longhurst visited the newly opened Disneyland Park in Anaheim, California. A regular viewer of the
All right.
Disneyland television show, Longhurst
Didn't
was
think the Wiggles
interested
were that
not
old.
just with the park, but the man who made it. The trip to Disneyland did not disappoint. Longhurst recalled, quote, "It was something different to anything I'd ever seen.
Longhurst. We need to remember that name. Longhurst.
There was something romantic about it." This
That's
trip
true.
began what would become a lifelong obsession with both Disneyland and Walt Disney. Longhurst studied Walt Disney's life and philosophy.
Walt Disney wants you
He
to be
learned the
obsessed
story
with
of
them.
Walt's inspiration for Disneyland, in which Walt describes sitting on a bench at Griffith Park, watching his daughters on a carousel.
I felt that there should be something built where that the
One
parent
moment. Cat wanted in the whole time. One time. Just remember, longer he's awake now, less he'll be awake at night, theoretically.
and the
Yeah, leaving
children
that in.
could have fun together.
A few years after he returned to Australia from his first Disneyland trip, Longhurst took his own
Make
children to a
Wiggleland.
local animal park. At one point during their visit, Longhurst's children became interested in a monkey exhibit. Shortly after arriving to see the monkeys, the animals began to urinate, and the stench was so potent that one of the kids became ill. In an attempt to turn the day around, Longhurst took the children to get a milkshake, only to be served by a woman who was constantly scratching herself while making the drinks. Longhurst quickly left with his children, and as he drove away, he had his own Walt Disney moment. He said to himself, quote,
Boy, I'd really love it if we could have a good time going out as a family without piss and skin flakes getting in everything.
somebody's got to do something about this.
Okay, I wasn't wrong.
After selling a profitable lawnmower business, Longhurst began to more seriously consider the prospect of building his own theme park. He set out to find a suitable site for the project, but after repeated failed attempts, Longhurst, in his own recollection of the events, spoke with God, asking, quote, Lord, where am I going to get this site to build my park?
Are there really not sites in Australia?
According to Longhurst, God responded, quote, 10 miles out on the Gold Coast. The area was perfect. Not only was it already a popular holiday destination, but there was land available. However, Longhurst was very selective about the land he needed for his park, requiring that the property have certain features for ideas he had. In 1974, Longhurst purchased 85 hectares, or 210 acres of land, 10 miles from the Gold Coast, per God's suggestion. Design and construction would take multiple years, with Longhurst spending over 2 years operating a bulldozer by himself to construct the park's layout.
I was gonna say, it's not the one he talked about last time, which eventually got ruined. Like they sold it to some Malaysian company who didn't actually want an amusement park. They wanted housing.
7 years and around $13 million later, the project was finished, and on December 15, 1981, Longhurst's Dream Park, aptly titled Dream World, opened to the public. When guests entered the park, they were introduced to a world of wonder unlike they had ever seen, assuming they had not been to Disneyland.
I was gonna say,
World's entrance was marked by a building.
This entire thing just looks like a proper. It looks like a bargain brand Disneyland.
That appeared to be a large train station. Beyond this was a quaint main street with buildings that resembled a turn-of-the-century American town. Guests could also find an area resembling an Old West town, with a grand river around which a paddle wheeler would travel. The park was described as Australia's answer to Disneyland, but it might be more fair to say that it was Australia's knockoff of Disneyland. This is exactly what Longhurst had hoped for, and even accounting for the similarities.
I'm actually not judging him for it. I'd do the same thing if I could.
The results were impressive. Dreamworld did have a few unique attractions, namely a state-of-the-art IMAX theater that dazzled guests. And even the elements that were directly lifted from Disneyland were given a unique Australian identity. Rather than Mickey and Minnie Mouse,
awesome.
Dreamworld
Hold on. Oh, I'm really interested.
IMAX theater that dazzled guests. And even the elements that were directly lifted from Disneyland were given a unique...
So they're getting held up by a knight? Is that an Australian thing? I love it.
Unique Australian identity. Rather than Mickey and Minnie Mouse, Dreamworld had Kenny Koala and Belinda Brown. Rather than the Steamboat's river simply being the rivers of America, Dreamworld's river was named the Murrissippi River, a hybrid of North America's Mississippi River and Australia's Murray River. The river was flanked by Old West buildings on one side and Australian buildings on the other. This hybrid of Disneyland entertainment with Australian touches was a practice that would continue, and just a few months after opening, Dreamworld had another Disney attraction with an Australian twist. In 1982, a new area named Gumtree Gully debuted on the banks of the Murrissippi River. The area was home to Gumtree Gully Hall, where Dreamworld guests could find the Koala Country Jamboree. This was a direct ripoff of Disney's Country Bear Jamboree, but with koalas. This elaborate animatronic show saw many scenes of koalas singing both classic Australian and American songs. Just like the Country Bear Jamboree, the show had a host and multiple musical acts. Despite the koala focus of the attraction, many other animal musicians were featured. There is a number where a rabbit sings Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. There is a number where an American bear shows up and sings a Confederate Army folk song. And there is even a number where a kangaroo sings an Australian lullaby, and in her pouch is a baby kangaroo who comes out and sings with her. The show also featured a beast known.
I love how we've convinced ourselves that kangaroo pouches are like the pouches on like a hoodie, and not like a really big. Like, that's not what it is. Like, you think you go like this, and it's comfy and soft in there, and you have people, like, even adults are like, oh, I just want to curl up in a kangaroo pouch. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. It's the insides of the kangaroo in there. I mean, some people still would. But that's like, they want to do that for a very different reason than this first group of people wanted to do it.
As the bunyip. The bunyip is an aquatic monster that originates from Aboriginal mythology. In the Koala Country Jamboree, though, the bunyip sings a love song and wears a big cowboy hat. All of the acts come back in the end to sing Peter Allen's I Still Call Australia Home, before the big finale, Tie Me Kangaroo Down Sport, which is the most Australian song of all time.
Tie me kangaroo down, sport, tie me kangaroo down. All together now.
The Koala Country Jamboree was well received by guests.
I'm pretty sure the most Australian song of all time is still G'day G'day. But okay.
And would become a favorite among Dreamworld fans. As time went on, Dreamworld continued to grow and expand, receiving many standard off-the-shelf amusement rides and some signature attractions. By the late 1980s, Dreamworld was Australia's...
I'm never a big fan of it when like a really big themey theme park devolves into like really generic stuff. Like if you ever go to what's its name? It's the it's like the park, the park in Anaheim that's supposed to have like an all Old West theme, but then you have like a little section which is Snoopy themed, and then in the back it's just good generic. At least when I was there for like 10, 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Oh my god, it's closer to 20 years ago. 20 years ago. I have no idea what it has now, if it still exists. It's on the tip of my tongue. But boy, I went there then, 20 years ago, and it's like some Western, little beaten down, a little bit of even more ugly, beaten down Snoopy stuff, specifically Snoopy. Like not that much Peanuts in my memory serves, specifically Snoopy stuff. And then you get past all that. Sorry, I'm my tongue again. People know what I'm talking about. And then at the back it says generic fare. Like we'd gone to Magic Mountain all of a sudden.
Australia's #1 tourist attraction, despite Longhurst originally stating that he would like to own the park for the rest of his life. After consideration, he decided to sell the park to entrepreneur Bruce Jenkins and his company Dreamco. Longhurst believed Jenkins would continue developing his dream and provide the park with necessary cash flow. Unfortunately, this was not the case. After purchasing Dreamworld in 1989, Jenkins and Dreamco were immediately in a dire state, and the park was taken over by financial firm Ernst & Young. The new management was more successful, increasing visits by 51% to a total of 1.8 million visitors per year. The park would change hands twice more before the turn of the century. By the early 2000s, Dreamworld was still struggling with finances, but new attractions gave hope for the park's future. A variety of wildlife exhibits had been added, and in 2002, a partnership with Nickelodeon allowed the park's Kiddyland, Kennyland, to...
I feel like... Again, I'm looking over here this way because that's where my bookshelf is. In one of the Discworld novels, the one that's specifically more about tying those two classic themes of Phantom of the Opera and Granny Ogg writing a cookbook version of Joy of Sex. Sorry, Facebook. Joy of Canoodling. That's appropriately Australian sounding word. One of the lines in that early on, when a character is trying to hide the fact that they are cooking the books and taking money from the opera house, they're saying, "Oh, well, you don't get money from an opera house, you get opera." You put in money and you get out opera. I feel like that's really the attitude that needs to be had to do an amusement park properly. I mean, even the most successful amusement parks you have over like Disneyland and everything. The amusement parks aren't what makes money. What makes money is getting people to stay in the associated hotels. And I'm not hearing anything about that with Dreamland. I'm not hearing anything that Dreamland is a resort park.
Transition to Nickelodeon Central. In 2004, another Australian theme park, Wonderland
Okay,
Sydney,
that's what I was
closed
thinking
for
of
good,
before.
and Dreamworld took the crown for the largest theme park in Australia. The success of Nickelodeon Central led Dreamworld to seek out more partnerships with recognizable properties, and in 2005, they were able to secure perhaps their most lucrative agreement yet. And just as Longhurst had done 3 decades prior, Dreamworld set out to make a Disney-caliber attraction with a distinct Australian twist. Lucky for them, there was already an Australian entertainment property that was taking the world by storm. The Wiggles are a children's music group that was founded in 1991. The group was started by Anthony Field,
so
a member of
did
the
not begin in
Australian pop band The
1957.
Cockroaches. At the time, Field was studying early childhood education at Macquarie University in Sydney, alongside another Cockroaches collaborator, Greg Page, and a guitarist, Murray Cook. Together, the three combined their musical talent with their interest in early childhood development, intending to create an album of songs that could act as an educational tool. After recruiting another Cockroaches band member, keyboardist Jeff Fatt,
So they were all
the group
cockroach.
formed The Wiggles. Over 2 years,
A
the
much
group
better
wrote and
and more
recorded their
marketable name to
first
kids
album, repurposing many
Cockroaches.
Cockroaches songs into more child-friendly Wiggles numbers.
It's Wiggle time!
The band evolved slowly over the next few years, adding supporting characters such as Captain Feathersword, Henry the Octopus, Wags the Dog, and Dorothy the Dinosaur. The group also began wearing their iconic outfits,
Very cute.
brightly colored skivvies. The Wiggles worked
Nice
diligently,
little
releasing more
Super
albums,
Sentai group
performing
for
live,
Australian
and
children.
producing music videos and tapes. In 1994, the band released the album Yummy Yummy, featuring 2 massive hits for the group, Hot Potato,
Hot potato,
and Fruit Salad.
That's the one I mentioned.
In 1995,
You
they
get that
released the
deep
album
voice thing.
Big
That was
Red
all the
Car,
rage in the
along with
aughts.
the accompanying video,
Obviously, this was
Big Red
90s.
Car. This was a notable moment in Wiggle.
And there was we played the Hot Potato song in my school. Whenever we did Hot Potato, I had no idea that was like from something, because there was, I don't know how much there is now, because that would require me to go into the Baby Shark side of YouTube, and the last time I did that, I was rewatching the duck goes into a hardware store song, and boy did that get stuck in my head. That's what I'm actually afraid of. Isn't like bad songs or just potentially disturbing songs. No. I'm worried about getting some of these earworms in my head. But like, I remember as a kid we were going to teacher stores every once in a while to get to grab something, because we would need pencils, or we would need pencil sharpeners, or my mom did some homeschooling for me for a little while, and then my younger brother longer than they're proud of, but let's not get into that. We'd go to the teacher stores, and very often you would get especially that's the one in 5th grade, when they decide the most important thing ever is for you to learn the name of all the states and their capitals. Which I hope they're not still doing. It actually made sense at the time to learn all your states and the capitals, but the second everybody got smartphones, it stopped making sense. I think it's something every president should learn. I fully believe that every president needs to be able to recite Wacko's States and Capitals song and Yakko's Countries of the World song modernized. That's what every president should do. That should be a requirement. You have to stand up there before your first debate. You do have to debate, and you have to sing the song. You can't recite it. You can't just know that you know it. You have to sing it. You can be badly. You can be bad karaoke, but you need to do that. there were all the. But my point is that there were all these CDs of like nobody artists going in there and recording a bunch of songs from the public domain that were vaguely educational. Some of which were obviously rip-offs of the Wacko song, which I have to assume they were fine with. I mean, they were using the they were using Buckle Eye Joe or whatever, however that song is, as the theme to Wacko song. So I think they couldn't copyright that one in the first place.
Eagles lore, as it introduced the band's
But not
iconic
Joe.
vehicle, the titular Big Red Car. At first, the car was represented with a crude cardboard cutout, and the song featured on the album about the Big Red Car would not be the vehicle's more
Look at the
iconic
purple
number.
guy.
Riding in a big red car.
There we go.
In 1997, the Wiggles' first and only theatrical film, The Wiggles Movie, was released in theaters. This film featured the first three-dimensional iteration of the Big Red Car, which was built from a dune buggy. The following year, in 1998, the Wiggles released their 9th studio album, Toot Toot,
Definitely
which
not a
featured the
fart
hit
noise.
track Toot Toot Chugga Chugga Big Red Car.
Toot toot chugga chugga big red car. We'll travel near and we'll travel far.
This would be
Yeah,
the
it's got
car's
nothing on
iconic
fruit
song,
salad or,
and it would take over the
banana
world.
bread.
Around this time, the Wiggles began to expand into international markets and found major success in the United States, initially touring with Barney Live before embarking on a tour of their own. This is when Wigglemania was at its peak. By 2005, the Wiggles had
remember.
released 21 studio albums, filmed 3 television
just a
series,
little too old,
and toured
really.
all over the world. The group was struggling to meet the demand, and the number of performances were taking a toll on the health of the group, namely Anthony Field and Greg Page. This level of wiggling was simply not sustainable, but Wigglemania was showing no signs of stopping. The Wiggles made 45 million Australian dollars in 2004, or nearly 34 million US dollars. This made them the
this is
highest
nice.
paid Australian entertainers, beating out Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe. The Wiggles' empire was an
It's kinda
intoxicating
terrifying when
gravy
you think about
train.
it. I mean,
the
that
kind
was
only
the joke in the 30 Rock episode when she was talking about, it's like, I want to break up a Beatles level group, and they kind of are.
only comes from singing about potatoes and dancing with a giant octopus, and it was a machine that could not be stopped. In an effort to maintain their health and stay closer to home, the Wiggles considered cutting down on their live performances. To supplement the lack of live shows, the group began to explore
So
other ventures.
delightfully
The
mortal
first was a
human.
chain of Wiggly Play Centers in Sydney. These entertainment centers were similar to those operated by Chuck E. Cheese and Discovery Zone. The Wiggly Play Centers featured indoor playgrounds, bouncy houses, and event spaces to host birthday parties. The Wiggly Play Centers allowed Wiggles fans to interact with the group without the Wiggles themselves needing to be present. Shortly after opening, a similar concept was announced, but this venture would be far more ambitious than a play center.
All right, Dark Ride, here we go.
Would you like to earn 6 figures a year writing for brands that you love? This is
Yes,
Kristen.
yes, I'm
She earns
eventually going to crack and do
$140,000 a
this.
year writing.
Despite the fact it's obviously a
In May of
scam.
2005, the Wiggles announced that they had entered an agreement with Dreamworld Theme Park. Dreamworld CEO Greg Shaw told the press, quote, "We will be talking to them about how we can develop
His
that opportunity.
gaze is
These
too
discussions
intense.
must have occurred fast, because just 2 months later,
I'm
it was
not
announced that a
understanding.
new Wiggles-themed area was coming to Dreamworld. The expansion would cost 7 million Australian dollars, or around 5.2 million US dollars. The new land would include shops,
So,
an
you
activity
know,
center, a playground,
tissue
an
paper
animal
money for
nursery,
Jeff
and a
Bezos.
brand new ride. The first new dark ride to be built in Australia in nearly
Like,
2
I'm sorry,
decades.
I'm just, that's like no money to me, and what I'm used to from these renovations at theme parks. It just feels like nothing. I mean, it's not an insignificant fraction of the amount of money they made in a year, which was a lot. But like, no, I'm sorry. In theme park money, I refuse to see $5 million as a lot of money.
The new land would take the place of Gumtree Gully. By this point,
Aw.
the space was far past its prime. Gumtree Gully Hall and the Koala Country Jamboree had already been closed for 3 years. Any hope for the
then.
return of the show was dashed with the announcement of the new Wiggles Land, whose flagship dark ride would take the space formerly occupied by the Singing Koalas. The new dark ride would not be unique just for its wiggly theme, but also for its advanced technology. The planned attraction would be a trackless dark ride, a style of ride that was still being introduced to many theme parks in the mid-2000s. Since their inception, in nearly 2 decades. The new land would take the place of Gumtree Gully. By this point, the space was far past its prime. Gumtree Gully Hall and the Koala Country Jamboree had already been closed for 3 years. Any hope for the return of the show was dashed with the announcement of the new Wiggles Land, whose flagship dark ride would take the space formerly occupied by the Singing Koalas. The new dark ride would not be unique just for its wiggly theme, but also for its advanced technology. The planned attraction would be a trackless dark ride, a style of ride that was still being introduced to many theme parks in the mid-2000s. Since their inception, dark rides have sent guests along a rigid and often visible track. This track was limiting to both the attraction's range of movement and its immersive theming. Throughout the late 20th century, ride designers experimented with ways to overcome these obstacles. Disney's Omnimover system allowed ride cars to pivot and for the most part hid the ride path from view, but this system was still on a track. It would not be until October 1st, 1982 that the first trackless ride system would be introduced with Epcot Center's Universe of Energy. Large theater seats full of guests passed throughout the attraction in unison with each other, in a slow-moving dance, with no track perceivable to guests. However, this was not a true trackless ride system either, as a 1/8-inch guide wire was embedded into the attraction's floor, laying out the ride's path.
This is what I love about dark rides, though. I love the almost magic trick nature to them.
The guide wire would transmit a radio signal to each vehicle, the strength of which would communicate the vehicle's position in relation to the track. This ride system was a technological marvel in 1982. Each vehicle needed its own computer, which would then communicate with the attraction's master computer. The vehicles would also need to have their own propulsion systems, and most challenging, their own power and charging systems. The Imagineer solution to the latter was to embed charging plates into the floor, which used a state-of-the-art inductive power coupling system to charge the ride cars at 2 points throughout their journey. While Universe of Energy was not technically a trackless dark ride by modern standards, it did introduce multiple innovations necessary for later systems to succeed. The guide wire system would be reused in 1989 for the Great Movie Ride, and again in 1994 for the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, with the system improving with each iteration. These attractions were all well received, obscuring the ride path and creating a more surprising experience for guests. While these systems delivered the theming benefits of a trackless ride system, the true potential of free range of motion had yet to be achieved. This was until the year 2000, when Tokyo Disneyland received a new dark ride named Pooh's Honey Hunt. Pooh's Honey Hunt was a breathtaking attraction, with a rumored budget of $130 million. On top of innovative effects and elaborate environments, the attraction's most impressive element was its true trackless ride system. Rather than using guide wires, Pooh's Honey Hunt used a local positioning.
I remember when this one showed up in Disneyland Anaheim, because that's where I am. That's when I usually go. That's where I almost always go to when I hit Disneyland. But Disney World twice, and both I think were before I was 5. Maybe only once when I was 4. Vague memories of it taking way too long to get out of the parking lot and to get out of to get off of Main Street, and I think waiting outside of Star Tours. Somebody must have been with me, but I don't remember there being somebody waiting with me. Those are my memories of. Those are all my memories. Oh, and they're looking at it last night. I went to Disney World, and the main thing I remember was the thunderstorm afterwards. Really beautiful lightning. Vaguely remember there being a much more larger and ambitious Star Adventure. But my point was, Disneyland, I remember, it was kind of fun when they put the Pooh ride in, because nobody, I don't remember there being any big announcement. There wasn't any big announcement or anything that I ever heard about. And it was like over behind Splash Mountain, so we kind of like discovered it. Same thing for the Little Mermaid ride, which was added to California Adventure with no fanfare. I think we might have been like one of the first 20 people to ever go on that thing, just because it was a new ride with no line, and my goodness, did it break down so many times on that one ride through.
System.
I like it when we. Because you get the ones like the and they make a huge fuss about the new submarine ride, the new Toy Story ride, huge outdoor lines. Still, years later, they just throw the Winnie the Pooh thing in there, and the Bugs Life Land, and the Little Mermaid one in there. Like, they're always there, no fanfare. And you just kind of magically discover them. Really, to myself
which a
as a
sensor
kid,
array
that
communicated
felt
with the
like.
ride cars and the attraction's main computer.
More magic
Unlike
tricks.
with a guide wire, this allowed for the ride pass to be completely virtual. Disney made great use of this technology, sending cars on different paths at the same time and synchronizing movements, resulting in fun choreography. This trackless ride system would be implemented and innovated in more Disney parks throughout the world, with the notable additions of motion simulation in Ratatouille the Adventure and an elevator and
Which
drop shaft in
I've never
Star
been
Wars
on.
Rise of the Resistance.
Oh,
Other
I've never been
companies
on.
have developed their own
These things
trackless
need to
ride
go to Disney
systems
World
using
for.
local positioning, leading to a trackless ride renaissance in the theme park industry that is still ongoing. However, back in 2005, when the Wiggles ride was being developed, local positioning systems for trackless rides were both new and prohibitively expensive. So while it would be widely promoted as a
spent $5
trackless
million
dark ride,
so far.
the attraction would rely on a guide wire system developed by a little-known company named SimTech. SimTech was a New Zealand-based entertainment company founded by set designer Frank Marquette in 1984. Marquette primarily worked on films such as The Lord of the Rings and small entertainment projects such as mini golf courses. In 2001, the company formed a team to develop an automated wire-guided vehicle system, or AGV, for themed entertainment rides, as Marquette believed that this ride type was the future of the industry. By 2003, the company had developed their system, reportedly piquing the interest of both Disney parks and Universal Studios. To prove their ability to develop a full-scale theme park attraction, SimTech built a proof-of-concept standalone ride named the Emperor's Tomb. This shooting dark ride was built near the company's headquarters in Christchurch, New Zealand. The ride used the new AGV system and also showcased SimTech's ability to produce animatronics and detailed show scenes. It would not be long after debuting this proof of concept that Dreamworld would contract SimTech to design and construct the Wiggles Dark Ride. SimTech would provide the ride system, animatronics, and show
Gotta be
scenes.
the big red car.
Arvis, a sound technology company, was also contracted to provide a unique audio system to each ride car. This included a microphone, a push button, and a speaker system.
This is gonna be a
According to
successful
Arvis,
ride and not
this
a
was,
horrible
quote,
failure.
the
It
world's
could go
first
either
onboard
way.
karaoke system for an amusement ride vehicle, and that, quote, special microphones had to be developed so that there was no feedback from the speakers directly next to them. Gumtree Gully was transformed quickly, with the new Wiggles area ready to open after just 4 months of construction. The
I'm
new
getting
land,
nervous.
named Wiggles World, had its opening ceremonies on
Obviously,
September
it's a wonderful
13th,
land.
2005, with the Wiggles themselves appearing and taking a ride on the land's signature dark ride, the Big Red Car Ride. The ride and the land would officially open 4 days later, and on September 17th, 2005, the children of Australia were welcomed inside a brand new Wiggly World.
And it went well.
Guests entered Wiggles World under a whimsical arch featuring illustrations of all 4 Wiggles, Dorothy the
pretty
dinosaur,
stock,
Henry the
honestly.
octopus, Wags the dog, and Captain Feathersword. Inside, families could visit the Fun Spot Activity Center for Wiggles-themed games, or visit the banks of the Mississippi River to play on the SS Feathersword playground. Throughout the land,
Still the
guests could
Mississippi
meet
River.
Henry
That
the
history.
octopus, Wags the dog, Dorothy the dinosaur, and even Captain Feathersword himself. The Gumtree Gully Farmyard Petting Zoo was rethemed to the Wiggles Farmyard Friends. The land also had a gift shop, marketed as the first Wiggles merchandise store, as well as a cafe
be
with
right.
healthy foods, appropriately named Yummy
Yummy
Yummy.
Yummy.
There was even a recreation of the exterior of the Wiggle House, which allowed guests to get up close and personal with Flora Door, the Wiggle House's sentient door.
Oh, she looks sassy as hell.
Wiggles World's main attraction was, of course,
I said
the Big
hell.
Red Car. The exterior featured a prominent marquee beckoning guests into their Wiggles
I feel like
adventure.
you need at least, like,
Guests
a
entered the
couple
ride
of
short
little
queue,
rides.
with the
Okay,
boarding
they have
area
them.
just a few feet ahead. A television mounted to the wall displayed Wiggles videos as guests waited in line. Guests watched as their own Big Red Car pulled into the loading station. The ride vehicle was perfectly themed, appearing identical to the Wiggles
I gotta
iconic
love.
car.
I do have to love a ride that has really good interactive videos to keep you entertained. Like, I remember going to Universal Studios, and one of the only 2 rides I had the courage to actually ride was the Back to the Future one. And I remember, like, they had some really good videos, explaining the whole storyline of Biff stealing the DeLorean and how to track them down. It was all really well done. Everything seemed big and
car,
cool. And
with the
totally
notable
pulled me into
additions
the
of
world
room
it
for
as a
3
little
riders
kid.
per row and the unique
20 years
karaoke
ago.
system. Guests waited patiently for the ride car to reach the loading area, which, depending on how many cars were operating on the track, could take a while. The ride had an advertised top speed of 2 kilometers per hour, or about 1.25 miles per hour. This is slow. For comparison, the Formula Rossa roller coaster at Ferrari World Abu Dhabi tops out at a speed of 240 kilometers per hour, or 149 miles per hour.
Yeah, but is anyone really comparing that
That's
to
over
that?
100 times faster than the Big Red Car Ride. Even compared to other dark rides, the Big Red Car Ride was slow.
Here we go.
For
This is
instance,
the
the
version
Haunted
I care
Mansion
about.
and similar Omnimovers moved twice as fast. And newer trackless dark rides are even faster. Speed was not an advertised element of the Big Red Car Ride, but it would definitely play a role in the energy and pacing of the attraction.
Okay.
Once
I'm
the
starting
car
to feel
arrived
it.
to the loading station, guests board the Big Red Car Ride and buckle up. The doors to the first show scene open, and it is officially time to wiggle. As the Wiggles begin singing Toot Toot Chugga Chugga Big Red Car, the ride vehicles slowly move into the Wiggles garden. Lights illuminate the space as the car turns to face a small TV mounted to the wall. The Wiggles appear on the screen, welcoming guests to the ride and suggesting that they use their microphones to sing along. They then inform riders that they will be entering the Wiggle House next.
Okay.
Why don't we go into the house and we can sing some songs together?
Toot Toot Chugga Chugga Big Red Car begins to play again as the vehicles slowly move into the Wiggles kitchen.
Yeah.
The car turns to face another TV screen, this time featuring Just Anthony, who instructs riders to sing Hot Potato. As the song begins, the cabinets, refrigerator, and oven
Okay,
open
that's
and
really
close to the
fun,
music.
Potato, potato, potato.
Next up is the Wiggles Lounge Room. Toot Toot Chugga Chugga Big Red Car plays again as the cars slowly move into the scene.
This is fun.
On the wall,
Maybe
the doors to all of
it's-
the
I
Wiggles
can't-
bedrooms can be seen.
I can't tell whether or not this is fun and whimsical, or long and painful yet. I feel like this could go either way. Feels like a ride you ride once, and love, and then if you're a kid, maybe you ride it twice, and then when you're riding it a third time, you realize, oh, that's why my mom refused to get on it with me again.
An iconic set to those familiar with Wiggles lore. After entering this room, the car turns to face a third TV screen. In this video, Jeff is sleeping and the Wiggles are attempting to wake him up. They ask that you use your microphone to shout, "Wake up, Jeff."
1, 2, 3.
Wake up, Dave!
Thanks for waking me up, everyone.
I absolutely bought into those interactive things as a kid. Even when I was 6, if I was watching Dora the Explorer, I would shout back. I had to. I didn't want to know. I did not want to know. It would be. Even then, I think instinctually, I knew how soul crushing it would be if that was met with quiet, and then she just did it anyway.
This wakes Jeff up, and the Wiggles then sing, "Wake up, Jeff." The vehicles again play
Well,
Toot
that's
Toot
rude.
Chugga Chugga Big Red Car
Sing
as they
Wake
move
Up,
into
Jeff
the next
after
room,
he's awake?
Wag's Kennel. The cars then turn to face a fourth TV screen. In this video, Greg explains that if we all sing Wave to Wags, Wags the dog might slide down his slide. After singing the song, Wags slides down. Very slowly.
That is hilarious.
The next scene is by far the most elaborate. Now underwater, guests encounter Henry the Octopus and a variety of sea creatures.
Quick, got it now. Slide down a slide. Wee, isn't this fun and exciting? I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure where this goes.
Including a fish playing a saxophone and a crab playing a guitar. The room is filled with detailed scene work, immersive lighting, and a fifth TV screen, on which Murray suggests riders move their arms like Henry and sing "Move Your Arms Like Henry." In response, Henry rocks from side to side, not technically
long
moving
one,
his
it's
arms at
so-
all, but the
Last video I
saxophone
did is still
fish
being
does
processed.
move back and forth, which is great. The final scene is in Dorothy's garden. Dorothy is
I
seen
missed
rocking
everything
back
you
and
just
forth
said.
on her
I'm
swing
just
as the
supposed to read
car
my
enters
other
the
video.
The cars then turn to face a fourth TV screen.
This is what
In
happens
this
when you
video,
do
Greg
3
explains
React
that if we
videos
all
with no
sing
editing.
Wave to Wags, Wags the dog might slide down his slide.
Ooh, we get to hear
After
this again.
singing the song, Wags slides down. Very slowly.
so funny.
The next
Why
scene is
not?
by far the most
Save
elaborate.
me.
Now underwater, guests encounter Henry the octopus and a variety of sea creatures, including a fish playing a saxophone and a crab playing a guitar. The room is filled with detailed scene work, immersive lighting, and a fifth TV screen, on which Murray suggests riders move their arms like Henry and sing "Move Your Arms Like Henry." In response, Henry rocks from side to side, not technically moving his arms at all, but the saxophone fish does move back and forth, which is great. The final scene is in Dorothy's garden. Dorothy is seen rocking back and forth on her
These very
swing
pretty
as the
flowers.
car enters the room. Dorothy greets guests, and as the car begins to exit, riders encounter their sixth and final television screen. The Wiggles express how fun the ride has been, and remind guests to wave to the camera. After snapping a photo, guests return to the loading area very slowly.
Makes it being very exciting for a kid the first time they ride it.
Comfort. It all starts with Snuggle.
Guess if you have a good ad, there's no need to
This is
change
ready
it.
to go online. Any questions?
Yeah, I got one. How about the best network imaginable? Let's invent that.
We don't have time for lag or buffering. Who doesn't want internet that helps AI do your homework even faster?
Come again?
Sorry, what was that?
The next generation 10G network only from Xfinity.
The Big Red Car Ride at Dreamworld initially received fairly positive reviews. For Wiggles fans, especially small children, the ride allowed them the unique opportunity to drive in the Big Red Car and visit iconic Wiggles
really exciting.
locations. The karaoke microphones added a unique interactive element, and the more
I like
elaborate
that
show
idea.
scenes toward the end of the ride were particularly well received. In many ways, the dark ride was impressive, especially for a small park like Dreamworld. However, there were many aspects of the ride that were less than great. The attraction relied heavily on its television screens, some of which were sloppily mounted with visible wires. The walls of each room did not extend to the show building's ceiling, which detracted from the theming and looked a bit dark and unsettling. Another odd and often frightening aspect of the attraction was the lighting design and timings. There seemed to be a lack of consistent show scene lighting, as each ride through from the first few years of operation appears to have different lighting patterns. For instance, when the Big Red Car exits the first room and enters the Wiggles kitchen, sometimes the lights are already on, sometimes the lights are off and turn on immediately, and sometimes the lights stay off in the kitchen until just before the video plays. This results in long stretches of guests entering a dark room with only the light of the other show scenes illuminating the space.
I remember being
The
a very
reverse of
scared
this problem
kid.
is also eerie. There are times when the kitchen lights are on, but the lounge room lights are not, so guests can see a very darkly lit lounge room ahead of them as they ride through the kitchen scene. This is even more off-putting in the more elaborate show scenes at the end. For example, sometimes guests will make it all the way into Dorothy's garden before the lights turn on.
Yeah,
The
'cause
other
you're having
negatives of the
really
Big Red
ominous.
Car Ride are not a fault of the Dreamworld attraction
Oh my
specifically,
god. That's terrifying. He's gonna eat those kids.
but are issues found in many trackless dark rides. Both wire-guided and local positioning system dark rides have an issue with scene layouts that traditional dark rides do not. Because there's a possibility that a trackless dark ride car will divert from its intended path in a way that a track-to-dark ride cannot, the show elements need to be placed further away from the planned route to account for this extra margin of error. This can make rooms feel empty and show scenes seem distant. Another downside of trackless dark rides is that the designers are
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't fully understand why the Big Red Car Ride had to be trackless. I don't think there being a track there would have distracted that much from that ride.
encouraged to illuminate the
This
floor,
one makes sense.
either to create more
This
natural
is
lighting
all
for an
about
environment
ambition.
or to showcase the lack of track to riders, so the
And about being
unpredictability
huge
is
and
more
awesome.
thrilling. The negative to this lighting technique is that it draws more attention to the extra floor space,
This one-
making
yeah,
some
this
show
is
scenes
awful.
feel like big empty rooms. One thing that the Big Red Car Ride did better than many trackless dark rides was its unique floor designs. Many show scenes featured fun floor patterns to account for the excessive space. One of the most glaring downsides to trackless dark ride floors was not present when the ride opened, but as with many trackless rides, it would not be long before the issue presented itself.
Scratches.
Overall, the ride that Simtech delivered was impressive given the budget and time restraints. The Big Red Car Ride, as it opened, was not awful. but changes were coming sooner than anyone could have anticipated. In September of 2006, a year after the land's opening, the Wiggles returned to their home at Dreamworld for a special concert celebrating the group's 15th birthday. The group also dedicated a new Wiggles World attraction, Dorothy's Rosie Teacup Ride. Fans flocked to Dreamworld to see the Wiggles return, but many longtime...
I'm already betting that there's probably a whole bunch of days where the teacup ride was way more popular than the dark ride.
Fans noticed that something was different. Greg Page, the Yellow Wiggle, was nowhere to be found.
Dun, dun, dun.
Instead, his understudy, Sam Moran, was performing as the Yellow Wiggle. Moran had been subbing for Page for years, but Page's absences had become more frequent, with compounding health issues cited as the reason. Just 1 month after the Wiggles' visit to Dreamworld, it was announced that Moran would be replacing Page for the rest of the Wiggles' 2006 tour, due to bouts of fainting that Page had been experiencing. Page's illness had still yet to be diagnosed, but he expressed his determination to join the Wiggles on future tours. However, just 1 month later, in November of 2006, Page released a...
The group was rated by Business Review magazine as Australia's top-rated entertainers, ahead of actors Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe. Okay, but that's only like collectively though, right?
video message to fans to deliver some shocking news.
For some time now, I've been suffering from a condition called orthostatic intolerance, which basically means that when I stand up, my heart doesn't pump enough blood around my body. It means that I'll no longer be able to sing and dance the way that I want to, and as a result, I've decided to stop performing with the Wiggles.
Moran replaced Page as the Yellow Wiggle completely, in songs, on tour, in videos, and in no time at all, in Dreamworld. In 2007, Moran replaced Page throughout the park, including on the land's entrance arch and the Big Red Car Ride's marquee. The Wiggles also shot new footage for the Big Red Car Ride with Moran. These changes meant that the original Big Red Car Ride operated for less than 2 years before receiving this significant change. While the new footage used the same script as the original, even the slight adjustment in timing and delivery began to alter the original design intentions of the attraction. On top of this, effects were consistently breaking down, and maintenance seemed to struggle to keep the ride experience consistent. The door that opens in the first show scene, separating the loading area from the rest of the ride, did not work reliably, and other times it flew open abruptly. As aforementioned, the lighting was inconsistent, but at certain times, they were more obviously malfunctioning. And just a few years after opening, the Big Red Car Ride was experiencing the same issue that even the most expensive trackless dark rides struggle with: visible tire marks throughout the attraction.
Yeah, okay, I called that
It was
one.
impressive that Dreamworld received a trackless dark ride with multiple show scenes and animatronics, but maintaining show quality was a huge challenge, and only a few years into the attraction's lifespan, the ride experience was already suffering.
Okay, so far the moral of the story really seems like they should have just put it on a track.
What the?
Dominic! Welcome to the big showdown.
In December of 2006,
I'm sorry, I need to... Truly, truly that series is the dark mirror. Well, not even the dark mirror, it's the focused mirror of the Marvel Universe.
Dreamworld opened a neighboring water park, Whitewater World, that featured an area dedicated to the Wiggles, Wiggle Bay, featuring 4 slides representing each Wiggle.
I mean, I wanted to assume that Wiggle doesn't secretly mean white power. I think you call it Whitewater World, and I'm like, it's just...
In 2007, Wiggles World came to the United States thanks to a partnership with Six Flags.
I don't mean that.
We can't help but love you all when you make us so wiggly giggly.
Six Flags Great America, Six Flags Great Adventure, and Six Flags New England received Wiggles Worlds of their own, with many identical features to Dreamworld's, with similar furnishings and signage. One feature that was not identical, though, was the appearance of Floridor.
So look sassy as hell.
The Great Escape and Six Flags Fiesta Texas would also receive Wiggles Worlds in 2008 and 2000. Similar furnishings and signage. One feature that was not identical, though, was the appearance of Floridor.
She look like
Why is she looking at me like that? The Great
I was gonna say,
Escape and
she
Six
looks like
Flags
she's
Fiesta
checking
Texas
someone
would also
out.
receive Wiggles Worlds in
It
2008
looks like
and
an
2009,
aroused
respectively.
doorway.
Some of these lands had their own big red car rides, but these were outdoor driving tracks, not
at a
dark
bridge or a
rides.
building or
As
whatever
with
it was?
Dream World, the Wiggles made appearances at the Six Flags Wiggles Worlds. However, while guests could meet Dorothy the Dinosaur, Henry the Octopus, Wags the Dog, and even Captain Feathersword,
Give me the
no
Wiggles.
actors ever filled in for the Wiggles at the park. Likely because if they did, children would be able to tell that they were not the real Wiggles. This
Fair.
went against the expectations of theme park guests, who were used to seeing and interacting with beloved characters. Most of the time, though, guests could not meet the Wiggles at Wiggles World, and without allowing local actors to portray the band, the only way to allow guests to interact with the Wiggles without the Wiggles themselves present would be to create mascot costumes of the four that park employees could wear. This really only works with animals and cartoon characters. A theme park would never create mascot costumes to represent 4 human men.
They did. Oh.
The Six
I love
Flags
how much
Wiggles
I hate
Worlds would
that.
only last until
I
2010,
don't hate it at all.
when
I'm
Six Flags
horrified.
ended its
vaguely.
licensing agreements
I'm
with
not nearly as horrified as I was by that shot of the CEO at the time with the intense eyes, or that dad who was definitely about to eat the kid.
multiple intellectual properties, including the Wiggles. The Six Flags lands were all rethemed for the 2011 season. This left only one Wiggles World, the original in Dream World, and more changes were coming to both the land and the Wiggles Worlds would only last until 2010, when sectors. A theme park would never create mascot costumes to represent 4 human men. The Six Flags Wiggles Worlds would only last until 2010, when Six Flags ended its licensing agreements with multiple intellectual properties, including the Wiggles. The Six Flags lands were all
And I
rethemed
still
for
remember
the
when there were Star
2011
Trek
season.
characters
This
walking all
left
over
only one Wiggles World, the original
Great
in
America.
Dream World, and more changes were coming to both the land and the Wiggles themselves. In January 2012, the Wiggles announced that Greg Page would be returning to don the yellow skivvy once more, replacing his replacement, Sam Moran. This made headlines around the world. It had been 5 years since Page had performed with the group,
What
and
changed
for many
at his heart?
children, Moran was the yellow Wiggle. Rumors circulated about the switch, speculating that Page's bad investments and financial troubles since leaving the group had necessitated his return, a claim that Page denied. Many speculated of bad blood between Moran and the rest of the group, which was all but confirmed over the course of the next couple of years. The band's manager, Paul Field, defended the decision, saying, quote, "If the Stones lost Mick Jagger due to illness and he came back a few years later, there wouldn't be a question." Page's return sparked
Yeah, but there
controversy
would
for
be
the
if
otherwise
he
wholesome
had a
musical
replacement
group,
that everybody loved.
with parents especially not happy with the sudden change. The Wiggles assured fans that they would pay Moran royalties on all of the songs that he had written for the group, and the band had offered him full access to the Wiggles Hot Potato Studios. Moran would go on to have a successful solo career, creating his own show on Nick Jr. named Play Along with Sam. Shortly after the switch, the Wiggles again reshot footage for the big red car ride with Page, which either means they lost the original files with him, or the band was so obsessed with the Dark Ride's continuity that the difference in their age would have kept them up at night. They also updated the signage around Wiggles World a third time with Old Greg, which was illustrated slightly different than young Greg was years prior.
I'm sorry. It's just the idea that they're making sure all the illustrations are old. Hey kids, go to Wiggles World. We're advertising that there's an old man there. Hey.
The drama over Page's return to the band was
I vaguely
short-lived
remember
and
this
practically all for naught, as in May of 2012, just a few months after the switch, the Wiggles announced that Jeff, Murray, and Greg would be leaving the band. This was in large part due to exhaustion and various health issues that the
I mean, you don't have to convince me that this guy's exhausted.
three were experiencing, as apparently nothing makes
I'm not
one
convinced
face
that
their
that
own
wasn't a
mortality
cardboard
more
standee.
than being a Wiggle. Anthony would be the only Wiggle to remain in the band, and 3 backup performers would
Ominous.
be handed the iconic skivvies: Lachlan Gillespie, Simon Price, and the first female Wiggle, Emma Watkins.
Good for her.
Later in 2012,
course she
Dreamworld
gets the
added
yellow
another
one.
Wiggles kiddie ride, the Big Red Boat
Give
Ride,
her the
with the Wiggles
toxic
once
color.
again present to dedicate the attraction.
Again, not saying yellow, the yellow color yellow itself is toxic. I'm saying in this context.
The new group's first performance together was at Dreamworld in 2013.
He's trying so hard.
That same year, the signage was again updated and the Big Red Car Ride went under a fourth refurbishment, the most significant in its history.
Okay.
Not only was a fourth round of video shot to
They're
account
trying
for the
so
new
hard.
members, but the first room was changed entirely to Emma's room, with music equipment and wallpaper featuring her soon-to-be iconic yellow bow. These changes only worsened the ride's pacing, and technical issues continue to plague the experience. The door to the first room was left permanently open, leaving no barrier between the loading area and the rest of the ride. The cabinets in the kitchen scene continued to open and close long after the segment ended, and the ride cars were consistently too early or too late in arriving to the next show scene. Audio tracks consistently clashed, with Toot Toot Chugga Chugga Big Red Car sometimes playing at the same time as the video, causing pure audio chaos. The lighting issues were as bad as ever, and somehow, almost impressively, the cars moved even slower throughout the ride. And every year the ride continued to operate, the experience only worsened. In less than a decade, the Big Red Car Ride had devolved into a truly awful ride experience. In 2015, Dreamworld announced that Wiggles World would be no more, but the Wiggles would not be going anywhere. The land would be rethemed to ABC Kids World to incorporate more properties from the Australian Broadcasting Company's popular children's franchises, including Play School, Giggle and Hoot, and those bananas that wear pajamas. Dorothy's Rosie Teacup Ride, the Big Red Boat Ride, and the Big Red Car Ride would remain and retain their Wiggles theming. The SS Feathersword would be rethemed to the Giggle and Hoot pirate ship, and the Fun Spot Activity Center would be rethemed to the ABC Kids World Fun Spot. Two new attractions, the Play School Art Room and the Bananas in Pajamas Fun Maze, would be added to the area as well. The iconic Wiggles Arch remained in the new land and was relocated closer to the Wiggle House. ABC Kids World added more relevance to the area, but the excitement surrounding the additions would be short-lived. On October 25, 2016, tragedy struck Dreamworld when the park's Thunder River Rapids ride malfunctioned, leading to a major accident between two rafts, resulting in the death of 4 riders. The incident became worldwide news, and an investigation was launched into the cause of the accident. In the following years, poor maintenance would be cited as a cause of the incident, and Dreamworld would pay out millions in fines and compensation to the victims' families. 3 years after the incident, in 2019, Dreamworld announced a $70 million expansion project.
See, that's big money for a theme park. $70 million. $70 million, not that $5 million. Oy. This is the difference between tissue papers and monogrammed handkerchiefs for Jeff Bezos.
Including the addition of a new triple launch coaster to replace the Thunder River Rapids ride. As part of the transformation, ABC Kids World would also receive a multi-million-dollar refurbishment. However, in March of 2020, Dreamworld closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, putting the expansion project on hold. In August of 2020, it was announced that the park would reopen in September. Before the park's reopening on September 16th, it was revealed that 2 Dreamworld rides would not reopen with the park. These were Flow Rider in the Ocean Parade section and the Big Red Car Ride in ABC Kids World.
And
the attraction
nobody
received
shed
no big
tears.
send-off, no final rides, not even a true goodbye, which is a shame because the Wiggles have 4 different songs about saying goodbye. One of the ride cars was placed outside of the attraction for photos, and the loading area was boarded up. The pandemic delayed Dreamworld's expansion plans significantly. ABC Kids World continued to operate throughout 2020, 2021, and 2022, with the Big Red Car Ride sitting in the dark, closed off to guests. Dreamworld eventually announced a new renovation schedule. A children's area, named Kenny and Belinda's Dreamland, would open in 2023. The Kittyland will replace Dreamworld's DreamWorks area and will feature many ABC Kids properties, including the Wiggles. The Wiggles will receive 2 new attractions, a Big Red Plane Spinner and a Big Red Boat Coaster, but no plans for a new Big Red Car Ride have been made. Once Kenny and Belinda's Dreamland fully opens, Dreamworld will finally close ABC Kids World to make room for a new area called Rivertown. Rivertown will be an homage to the original Rivertown area that Longhurst built for Dreamworld all the way back in 1981. And the land will feature a new family coaster, Jungle Rush. While the Wiggles will live on at Dreamworld, the sudden closure of the Big Red Car Ride was disappointing to Dreamworld and Wiggles fans that would have preferred to give the attraction a proper send-off. The ride was not the most impressive, and its deterioration over the years had left it in an abysmal state. Still, it had allowed children to take a trip in the Wiggles' big red car, sing along to classic Wiggles songs, and visit iconic Wiggles locations. Even if it did all of those things, very slowly. The Wiggles have continued to evolve over the past few years, and the current
I love the way this guy keeps his tone of voice, but can still manage to insert some humor into it. It's
band
very
continues
well
to spend time at Dreamworld. While the group is still popular, their presence in the park and the band itself
impressive
might never
that they're
again
still
reach
so
the
popular.
prevalence
I
they
had no
experienced
idea
at the
that
time
anyone
Wiggles
still-
World opened.
anyone
For
were
those
still,
lucky
Wiggles
enough to
fans.
experience the Wiggles home on the Gold Coast in its heyday,
Good for them.
there was never a better time to wiggle.
Surprised that somebody named Perjurer has good things to say about people. Anyway, if somehow this is the first time you ever watched something from Defunctland, I hope that now you understand why I like them. And I am done with reactions for today. Oy. It's been the rest of the day actually converting these and getting on these onto YouTube, and hopefully getting some writing done. I'm overdue. Anyway, like, subscribe, and comment your favorite dark ride.